In Ecuador, former Vice President Jorge Glas was released after spending 5 years in prison. The presidents of Russia and Kazakhstan signed a joint statement on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the establishment of bilateral diplomatic relations. The Mauna Loa volcano, the world's largest, began erupting after nearly 40 years. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Ecuador, former Vice President Jorge Glas was released on Monday after spending 5 years in prison after the judge issued a release order. Glas was irregularities in oil extraction contracts, along with 6 other implicated parties. The former Vice President had already been denied 2 habeas corpus, one of which allowed him to leave prison for several days this year before being annulled following political and media pressure. The magistrate in charge of issuing the release order detailed that Glas will have to present himself once a week in Bolivia, and he cannot leave the country. After leaving the penitentiary, the former Vice President did not offer any statements but greeted the supporters who were waiting for him. Bolivia's legislature said that it will receive the bill to implement the results of the population and housing census in the financial and electoral areas. According to the presidency of the Chamber of Senators, the law was approved by more than 2/3 of the votes of the deputies, and will be called to refer the law to the Constitution Commission. In this respect, the president of the Constitution Committee of the Chamber of Deputies, Juan José Jauregui, stated that the proceedings in the Senate would be expedited, as it will only have to consider a single bill. The Chamber of the regulation, which in essence includes the contents of the decree, wishes that the population and the housing census will be carried out by March 23, 2024. The judiciary called for the creation of mechanisms to overcome the current political crisis in the country. In this regard, the president of the entity, Elvira Barrios, affirmed that it is necessary to build bridges between the institutions in view of the serious political crisis the country experiences. At the same time, they assured that the belligerent environment promoted by the Congress against Kazakhstan generates a serious risk to democracy institutions. At the same time, the National Executive accuses Parliament of denying him support to the constitutional mechanism based on the question of confidence. If this is in the same presidential term, it will entitle President to dissolve Congress. In Chile, unions decided to continue with the strike that a week ago for security and fuel prices, despite the agreement with the government to end the conflict. According to the we are on the side of the roads, and one part of the south and north continue demonstrations after rejecting an agreement signed by government with the National Confederation of Cargo Transport and the Federation of Truck Owners of Valparaiso region. For its part, the government pointed out that it will not allow blockades of strategic points and will use all legal means to clear the highways. In Argentina, the program of the export increase that benefits the agricultural sector is effective after Sunday. The program, which establishes a differential exchange rate for the soybean of $230 per each, will be enforced until December 31st and contemplates an update in the dollar exchange rate based on the evolution of inflation. As a reference, the $200 that prevailed in the first version implemented in September. The measure was announced on Friday, November 25th, during a meeting with executives of the agro-industrial sector by the Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, who stated that the program will allow for the strengthening of the reserves and generate a higher level of activity in the agricultural and agro-industrial sector. In this sense, Massa pointed out that this measure seeks to respond to the government's conviction to beat the record of Argentine exports in the agro-industrial complex. Cuba, over 5 million citizens went to the polls to elect delegates to the People's Power Municipal Assemblies, the main state body at the local level. Of the 8,351,311 registered voters, 5,332,591 people went to the polls on Sunday. That is 63.85%. These are the first elections by the new electoral law under the new 2019 Constitution. To be elected, a candidate must get 50% plus one of the total votes. Chosen candidates will exercise their mandate in a non-partisan manner for 5 years, as stipulated in the new constitution. In the districts where a runoff is necessary, it will take place next December the 4th. Then, on December 17th, the new municipal assemblies will be officially set up. Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The presidents of Russia and Kazakhstan signed a joint statement on Monday, the 30th anniversary of the establishment of bilateral diplomatic relations. During the ceremony, the Russian president expressed his satisfaction with the successful development of relations between Moscow and Astana. The Russian head of state also welcomed the recent re-election of Tokayev as the head of the Kazakh state, stressing the closeness and goodwill of his administration. For his part, the Kazakh leader highlighted the political significance and symbolism of his first official visit to the nation after his election, whilst thanking the Russian leader for his support and closeness.
The lifting of all restrictions and the creation of mutually beneficial conditions for trade are clearly key to the quality economic growth of our countries. This is why our meeting today has a special character.
Moldova activists protested against the national government in the streets of Chisinau. According to local media, protesters demanded the resignation of President Maia Sandu and the holding of early elections due to the energy policies of the state implemented during her administration. Also, Moldovan citizens pointed out that the country suffers a sharp increase in the cost of public services. In this context, it is worth mentioning that this Sunday's rally in the Moldovan capital gathered more than 50,000 people. In Europe, an international police operation has dismantled a hotel in Somali and the United Arab Emirates. Police seized over 500,000 euros in cash, some 30,000 kilos of cocaine heading for the European market, and arrested 49 suspects, among 7 high-profile ones. Authorities have been investigating the case since 2020 after the seizure of a container loaded with 698 kilos of drugs in a port city of Valencia. The drug cartel, based in Spain, had at least 2 structures, one in charge of moving drugs between ports of Panama and Spain, and another one in charge of blocking capital, mainly in the Arab Emirates.
the figure that has been seized last year, 240 tons of cocaine. We think more will be shipped, is shipped to the EU. So 30 tons is a lot, but on a global scale, it's not that massive. But it will have an impact on cocaine coming in, because it's not only the number of cocaine that has been seized, it's that the super cartel behind, different networks together to create a huge super cartel of cocaine trafficking. This cartel has been dismantled. So strategically, in the long term, it will have a big impact.
Now we move on to other topics. On Sunday night, the U.S. Geological Service reported that Hawaii's Mauna Loa, the world's largest active volcano, started to erupt. According to the Geological Service, lava flows are contained within the summit area and did not pose a threat to downslope communities. However, these events, early eruption stages of this volcano can be very dynamic, and the location and advance of lava flows can change rapidly. After the activity reports, the volcano alert level from an advisory to warning. The hope is to advance as soon as possible to better assess potential. 2.5 magnitude have struck the region in the last few hours, with one measuring 4.2 in magnitude. In 85. On Monday, search parties recovered a landslide on the small Italian island of Ischia, as former mayor said he evacuation had been ignored. A wave of earth and debris crashed through the small town of Kazakh with heavy rains on Saturday, destroying houses and sweeping cars down to the sea. The latest body to be recovered was a 15-year-old boy killed with his mother and sister. Authorities said 4 people are still missing. As the island mourned its death, including a 21-day-old baby, it emerged on Monday that former mayor be evacuated. The disaster was caused by overdevelopment and a lack of mitigation. The devastation in Ischia comes just weeks after a lot of people died in heavy rain in the region of March. We have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. On Monday, the World Health Organization languages. WHO noted that when the disease outbreak began in May 2022, racist and stigmatizing states were observed, prompting some individuals to call for name change. Names will be used for 1 year before the term monkeypox is completely replaced. The disease was so named because it was originally identified in research monkeys in Denmark in 1958, but occurs more commonly in rodents. It was first reported in humans in 1970 in the Democratic Republic of certain West African countries where it is endemic, but in May, cases and 50 fatalities have been reported to WHO in 110 countries. In Nairobi, the East African community held the 3rd meeting of consultations for the peace process in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It is the third of a series of peace talks on the eastern region of the DRC, which have witnessed between Congolese troops and the M23 rebel group. Kenya's President William Ruto and Evariste Ndayishimiye attended the Monday opening session in person, Rwanda and Uganda at virtually. President Ruto, mediator, said the East African community will do everything possible to find a lasting, peaceful solution to this conflict. On Monday, Somali forces stormed a hotel in the capital Mogadishu, where extremists have been holed up for more than 18 hours after killing Al-Shabaab terrorist group said in a broadcast on its own frequency Sunday that its fighters attacked the hotel, which has a restaurant popular with government and security officials. The hotel is not far from the presidential palace via Somalia, in one of the most protected parts of central Mogadishu. Comes a new high-profile offensive by the Somali government against Al-Shabaab, which still controls large parts of central southern Somalia. Al-Shabaab opposes Somalia's federal government, which is backed by African Union peacekeepers. Al-Shabaab seeks to take power and enforce a strict
In the name of God, the most gracious and the most merciful, the siege of the Villa Rosa Hotel have been concluded on the 8th of November. 5 of the 6 fighters who attacked the hotel were killed, and one of them committed suicide. The militant who were staying in the hotel at the time the attack took place. As a result of the attack, 60 people have been evacuated by the security forces, and no civilians have been injured. Who was in the people, and the wounding of other members.
Inflation that has reached almost 40%, and its currency has fallen by almost half compared to US. Ghana, along with in food and energy prices, caused mainly by Western sanctions against Russia following the conflict in Ukraine. But the country also had to deal with the fall of its currency has been one of the worst performers this year. With 31 million people, Ghana is now one of the countries hardest hit by the dollar to get goods. Took place the White Eagles and Indomitable Lions without a winner on the road to the round of against the Serbs at the Al-Janub Stadium after a 3-1 but they were able to recover gradually with a series of moves that ended up equalizing the match dominated by the Europeans. For the goals, Pavlicic, Milinovic, Savic and Mitrovic for the Serbian. And on the African side, the stars are in the hands of the White Eagles. Thus, both teams have 1 point after 2 matches played in G and are still on track to qualify for the round of 16. And Portugal booked their place in the Cup last 16 on Monday as Bruno for second half secured a 2-0 win over Uruguay. The deadlock was broken when Fernandes' cross was missed by Cristiano Ronaldo and flew straight into the net. The Manchester United midfielder added a second spot to the top of Group H with 6 points. Just hearts of millions of the Qatar 2022 World Cup sporting event with From the Field. News, analysis, reviews, to audience. Don't miss it. Our show airs 1 p.m. local time in Kazakhstan and p.m. New York. Remember, the TeleSUR. And we come to the end of our website at english.net. As you find, join us on latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.